They don't think they're doing anything wrong, but they're living in their parents' basement. I don't hear of men often enough saying point blank, I would love to take you on a date. They say things like, hey, you're pretty cool. Do you want to hang out sometime? Like, what does hang out mean? Women want to be pursued. I would recommend going more to God about your spouse than going to your spouse about God. I'm dating to marry. You're not in high school. You don't need a prom date. You're dating to marry. So be bold in Christ. When you're so emotionally invested, you get rather blind to the truth in front of you. Research shows that an above all amount of men, I think it's like 75%, have been involved in porn.
You are missing your own life. I'm sorry, but somebody had to say it. You're busy, you're tired, you're doing 1,000 things every day. You get to the end of the day and you can't even remember being in it. So what if you could pay 16 cents a day to actually be present for your life? I send you short texts 3 times a week designed to snap you out of your autopilot and back into your actual life. You get a Sunday journal reflection, too, to go even deeper, and once a month we get together on a live call. No course, no workbook, just consistent small interruptions that actually change how you move through your days. Go to catholicwoman.co/present before today disappears too. That's catholicwoman.co/present. Hello. Welcome to the Catholic Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Marie Hansen. You guys, today, this is the first time I've had to do this. I am re-recording an episode that we spent 75 minutes recording before because the second half did not even save. It was just me talking and you couldn't even hear our guest at all. I've never had that happen before. Don't even know what happened. Contacted support. They're like, we don't know what happened. So the Holy Spirit really does not want you guys to hear this episode today, and I think it's a really important one. We are going to discuss a lot of different things. This is specifically geared towards single Catholic women. I haven't done an episode specifically for you guys in a very long time, maybe ever, but I do, before everyone else runs away, I think this episode's going to be very, very helpful because we all have brothers and friends and husbands who have friends, or kids or grandkids who this episode would be helpful for. So I think it's important for everyone to listen to this episode, regardless of if you're married or not. But I am going to introduce you guys to our guest today. She is amazing, and I really, really hope this episode works. So her name is Dana Nygaard, and she is a devout Catholic with a heart for new evangelization. As a licensed professional counselor, relationship coach, author, and national speaker, Dana is passionate about helping others transform their lives through intentional relationships. She combines proven psychotherapy techniques with authentic Catholic spirituality, offering clients and audiences practical solutions that inspire healing, growth, and lasting change. She created Miss to Mrs., From Single to Sacramental, to empower single Catholic women to discern Mr. Right and Mr. Wrong, avoid settling, and build a strong foundation for a joyful, faith-filled marriage. Her expertise also extends to marriage enrichment, where her book 365 Dates to Renew Your Christian Marriage and her Cana Commandments retreats equip couples to deepen their emotional and spiritual connection, aligning their relationships with God's divine plan for love. A former teacher, Dana earned her Bachelor of Secondary Education from the University of North Texas. Inspired by her desire to help individuals and couples find emotional, psychological, and spiritual healing, she later earned her counseling degree from Dallas Baptist University. With training in the Gottman method of couples therapy and extensive experience with Catholic counseling, Dana brings compassion, wisdom, and faith-filled guidance to every client and audience she serves. Dana and her husband, David, live in Plano, Texas, where their own faith-filled marriage serves as a living testament to God's design for love and commitment. Together, they inspire others to cultivate intimacy, joy, and purpose in their relationships. Dana, welcome again to the Catholic Woman Podcast.
Thanks. I'm glad for the excuse that we get to talk again. So I was okay when you reached out. I was like, not a problem.
Oh, thank you. Well, it was a beautiful conversation, so I'm excited to talk again. It's just crazy that happened. And for those of you listening, I do have guiding questions, but all of our conversations end up going off the cuff very quickly. Sorry, I'm sick, so if I sound a little weird today, that's why. So I can't necessarily recreate the exact conversation we had because I don't script these conversations. I let the Holy Spirit lead them. But that said, we were like, you know what? I think maybe the Holy Spirit had something else that he needed to add. So we're going to just see where today's episode goes. Starting though, Dana, let's talk about dating and single Catholic women. So I'm the oldest of 12. I have one other sister who's married, and the rest are all single or dating. So I talked to my siblings in prep for this episode, and my 21-year-old sister told me that nobody's approaching me who wants to date me. And let's just start there because I know a lot of Catholic women are feeling this. They don't want to be the one approaching the man, but nobody's approaching them, and they just want to date, but they're just not really getting the opportunity to.
Well, I think there's two sides of it that I see. So for the women to make sure that they're approachable. So I know that if I go into a store and I have in my AirPods and there's someone in the store who the store has given permission to approach me with the clipboard and ask me if I want, new cable, that annoys me because I'm not there for that. I'm there to shop, right? And so I point to my earbuds like, oh, I'm in a conversation. I'm just listening to a Catholic podcast or I'm on the Hello app, right? That's what I'm doing. Um, but as soon as they see them, they go, oh, and they back off.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're running around listening to these fabulous podcasts and things, but in public where maybe we can meet men or at an event, we need to take those out of our ears and maybe listen in our car when we're alone so the men know that we're approachable. I also think it's helpful if women uh, take a quick crash course and how to flirt, how to make sure that a guy knows that you're approachable. Because what I think part of what's happened is for the last 20, 30 years, so many men have been taught, oh, you have to be so sensitive with women. And, like if you go up to them and say anything, they could think you're trying to assault them. And so many men hang back now, which is really sad. And then
Mm-hmm.
part of it is in the culture that there's just a lot of immaturity and people don't know how to be direct. So they overuse words like I was going to the store. Were you going to the store? Or you were like going. No, I was going. Okay, well, why'd you say like? And so there are words that we throw out there. But what's interesting is with all this I don't know, weakness of vocabulary where things are very generic. I don't hear of men often enough saying point blank, hi, Betty, whoever this woman is, hi, Betty, I would love to take you on a date. Would you like to go out on a date with me? They say things like, hey, you're pretty cool. Do you want to hang out sometime? Like, what does hang out mean? Am I gonna
Mm-hmm.
wear sweats? Like, what does that mean? Not me, I'm married, but, you get the
Yeah.
example, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so for the men and for the women listening that have, men in their lives, single men in their lives, tell them, like, thump them on the head, like, you need to ask. Women want to be pursued. You alluded to that earlier. We don't want to be the one asking. And so when I hear sometimes women, usually not Catholic women, like, well, I'm a feminist. I get, well, honey, no one's going to ask you to marry them. Men don't want a boss babe. That's not what men are interested in. So that's another thing is when you're out there in the world, if that's your first thing, I'm really well traveled. I've been to 49 countries and I own 3 businesses. That actually is a turnoff to a lot of men. That's not the thing I would lead with, that I'm a boss babe.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good point because obviously you and me both, we're very, passionate women. We love to work. We have, find a lot of purpose in our work, and that's okay. Like there's saints, obviously, like Saint Gianna, who is a doctor, but leading with that and leading like, I'm good, I'm independent, I'm fine by myself, like I don't need you, even if that's true, like you're fine on your own. That's definitely not the way to lead those conversations because they're going to be like, oh, okay, like bye, I
Men
guess.
want to be,
Um,
men want to be
yeah.
needed. Yeah,
They
let
do.
them
Just
kill
like
the
we wanna
bugs.
be pursued, they wanna be needed. Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
love it.
okay, we do have a problem with men being scared to approach weak, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that, which I'd like to get into later. But let's just start with, like, we're out at a coffee shop, and there's this guy that's cute that caught your attention. How does a woman, if he's not, like, even, looking your way, drop the hanky, so to say, to get his attention? And then what if he does say something like, "Do you wanna hang out sometime?" How do you turn that into a direct, how do you get out of the gray area with that?
So the drop the hanky, I would try to engage in some way that wasn't super obvious, like, "Oh, is that the book by, Joe Blow? No, this is by, Dan Edwards," whatever it is, right? Try to get some point of connection, something like, "Do I see you at the bank over here? Because that's my bank and you just look so," something to get things going, right? Or is
Mhm.
anyone sitting here? Something to get eye contact. And a lot of times when women will, you want to look at the guy and then you want to look away, like if you're not talking. And then you want to look, and then when he looks at you to see if you're looking at him, look away. You want there to be this back and forth. If it's a guy who's staring at you, just staring, that's creepy. That's
Mhm.
predatory. So we don't want to go there, okay? And then the next part of the question, if they say to you, "Hey, do you want to hang out?" I would just be very clear up front. "Oh, well, that's interesting. What do you mean by hang out? Are you asking me on a date?" And if it's a no, well, they're gonna look stupid, and then right? Like,
Mhm.
okay, they're saying no, like, "I just wanna hang out and play some basketball with my bros." Okay, that's not who I am. I wanna go on a date. Then the man knows to clarify, because sometimes men need a little bit of help.
Mhm.
Right? To know
Yep.
like, "Oh, I have to ask her to I have to be clear." Yes, that's how all communication is with men and women. Women give this breath and the men are like, "What?" And I say this in front of men all the time when we give retreats, and they never get offended. I say, "Men are simple." And I don't mean simple-minded.
Mhm.
They just don't have a lot of the stuff floating in their heads that we women do.
Mhm.
And so sometimes they don't realize if they can just cut to the chase, we just need more clarification is what we need because they think they're being
Mhm.
perfectly clear, and any
Yep.
woman in the room would be looking around like, "No, that wasn't clear at all." So just ask it in a non-confrontation, and I would do it a little flirty. I'd maybe do a hair flip, be like, "Are you asking me on a date?" and smile. Give them that
Mhm.
10,000-watt smile, and
I
then see
love
how
that.
things go from there.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think just point blank asking is huge. And doing it, like you said, in like a flirty way. So not, to scare him or anything like that, but just make him be clear, like, yes, I am, or nope, no, I wasn't interested in that. And you'll get your answer there. I like that. So let's say he says yes and you go on a date. At what point in a relationship, I know a lot of people ideally want to meet at church things or, but there's only so many people in your local diocese or whatever. At what point in a relationship do you bring up being Catholic?
I would bring it up immediately. I wouldn't say like, "Hi, I'm 5'8". I like hot dogs, chihuahuas, and going to the beach, and I'm Catholic." Okay, I wouldn't do it in some list. I would make it pretty obvious. I would say, "Sunday. Oh, you'd like to go out on Sunday. Okay, well, I have mass." Because who says mass, right? The Catholics.
Yep,
"I have
yep.
mass. I'm meeting with Father." I would say something. I would also, have on something that's, very Catholic. Like you can't miss that. I start so many
Mhm,
conversations with servers at restaurants. And so when I see that, I already know we are halfway there. So I would make it obvious up front. I would say it if not just like, "Hi, what do you like to do on a typical weekend?" For me, well, I always meet my girlfriends for mass or with my family. I'm over here at St. Peter's. Where are you?
that's a
And I
good
would
way to
just
put
be
it, yeah.
bold because if, like, let's say you never want to leave the United States ever to live someplace else, okay, and you meet someone and you already know that they plan on moving to a different country, why are you dating that person? If you're like, "No, I'm not
Mhm,
even leaving my city. I have 4,000 relatives here. I'm never." So let's just be clear up front so you don't waste your time and their time. And I would bring up the topic of marriage. I don't mean like, "Will you marry me?" Don't do that. That would be desperate. Just, I'm dating to marry. Like, you're not in high
mhm,
school. You don't need a prom date. You're not just like, "Oh, I need someone to go to prom." You're
yeah,
dating to
yep,
marry. So be bold in Christ. And
that's
if you
really good.
lead with your right, lead with your faith.
Yeah. Okay, so I want I have two questions. Now let's keep on the Catholic note. So what are your thoughts, and I have opinions on this, but what are your thoughts about dating a non-Catholic?
I think you have to be cautious. We have all heard stories of, oh, my husband, of 20 years, it was a struggle, but now he just decided to come into the Catholic faith. Like, I personally know people like that.
Mhm.
It's risky because that doesn't mean that that's going to happen for you, that your spouse will eventually come over. And what I hear more of than the success stories are stories of, he said, fine, okay, we can get married in the Catholic Church. Yes, we can raise our
Mhm.
children Catholic. Okay. But then when it comes down to it, I'm not comfortable baptizing them in the Catholic Church. Wait, what? You said to me up front, and now we're married and have babies. What? So
Mhm.
I think it's more dangerous, and you put yourself at a lot of risk. I know people who weren't able to get their children baptized for the first 10, 15 years of their life because
Mm.
the spouse is like, no, but I'm leaning more over this direction at this, Methodist church or non-denominational and so on. So I just think it's risky.
Mhm. For
You
sure.
have to do a lot of conversation up front.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even let's say like even if they do, agree to all of that, you get your kids baptized, all that stuff. There are just things in life that happen that are just going to be harder when you're not on the same moral foundation. Like for example, using NFP, the church teaches we can't use contraception even in, very serious situations. You use abstinence and NFP. Well, that's hard. That's a huge sacrifice for both spouses. And so if you don't really have that true moral theological understanding of why, that's just a really hard sacrifice to make, even, even for your spouse's wishes or whatever. And I know a lot of women listening to this are married to non-Catholics. So for the married women listening who are married to non-Catholics, because I know you work with more than just single women, do you have any advice, just generally speaking, for them? Let's just say they're in a really good, happy marriage overall, but they're married to a non-Catholic. Are there any things they can do to, obviously pray for their spouse's conversion, but aside from that, to just make their marriage less friction filled and those aspects, that pop up every once in a while because of the faith differences?
There isn't a good answer for, because you brought up a great topic, NFP.
Mhm.
That's a hard one, right? That is really tough.
Mhm.
What I often hear is when a woman is married to a non-Catholic or even a Catholic who's just against NFP, but
Mhm.
didn't say that up front necessarily, then it's really difficult because they're not wanting to wound their marriage, but their spouse is angry,
Mhm.
right? Like, oh, you're turning me down. No, I'm not rejecting you, but we agreed this is not the time to try to conceive, or we are trying to conceive, so we should wait, or whatever it is. That there's really not a great answer for that other than what you said, which is prayer. And I
Okay.
would have my house blessed. I would have blessed salt sprinkled all over the house. I'd have a miraculous metal tucked in between, like the mattress and the box spring. And I would recommend going more to God about your spouse than going to your spouse about God. That's
Mm.
something that
That's
Saint
really good.
Ambrose said in many much better words to Saint Monica when she was concerned about Saint Augustine, and it's a really good thing because if not, then it becomes there's so much tension, and that's not good for marriage. So I would pray for a conversion of heart while still holding your ground, because when we someday get in front of Jesus, right, and we're having that judgment, we don't get to say, "But," and point and go, "But he made me do it." Which is
Mhm.
why I have Miss to Mrs. is to help women discern up front. So for it not just to be, oh, you agree? Okay, we're good. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if you're in the mood and I'm not? What if you decide you don't want the children baptized? You have to talk about all the things, and then you have to watch their character. Is this a man of his word who has integrity, who will stick by what he says? Because if he fudges around with things over here at work with his own family, with his own friends, then that's not a man of character, and he will not honor what he agreed to up front.
Sister Lucia of Fatima once said, "There is no problem, no matter how difficult, that we cannot solve by the prayer of the Holy Rosary." Today's sponsor, Choose Life, truly lives by those words. Choose Life is a Catholic-owned small business whose mission is simple but bold: to equip every Catholic in every age and season with rosaries for life. For the littlest Catholics, Choose Life offers silicone rosaries that are soft, durable, and made for hands to safely explore and grow in love with the rosary. It's like watching your child reach out to hold Our Lady's hand. We have so many of these silicone ones in our house, and they are so cute. Perfect for the kids to pray along with and chew on as well when they're little babies. And then for women, their excuse-proof rosary bracelet is both beautiful and wearable. A gemstone rosary designed to keep prayer close throughout your day, whether you're at work, running errands, or caring for your family. Each bracelet includes a unique bookmark crucifix charm so that you can pause and pick up right where you left off, because life and prayer do go hand in hand. And also for the men in your life, that same craftsmanship continues through cruxandvicta.com, Choose Life's brother brand, which features bold paracord and gemstone rosary bracelets that remind us victory comes through the cross. And for those wanting to go deeper in prayer, founder Shannon Went's new book, The Weight of the Rosary, A Journey with Mary Through Scripture, Liturgy, and Life, is now available. It's a powerful invitation to walk with Mary and rediscover the mysteries of the Rosary in a whole new way. And we actually just had Shannon on to talk about this incredible book too. So if you haven't listened to that, go back a few episodes to check it out, because you are not going to want to miss her testimony about the Rosary. So you can find all of these at chooselife.com or CRUXINVICTA.com. And as a special thank you to the Catholic Women listeners, you can use the code TCW15 for 15% off your order on either site. That's TCW for the Catholic Woman, 15 for 15% off on both Choose Life and cruxandvicta.com. Thank you so much, Shannon, and Choose Life and Crux and Victa for sponsoring this episode.
Spring in the church is a beautiful season. Across parishes and schools, families are preparing for First Holy Communion, confirmation, and welcoming new Catholics through OCIA. These are sacred moments, milestones where our children receive the grace of the sacraments and grow closer to Christ. At Party Like a Saint, they believe these moments deserve to be celebrated with joy and intention. That's why their family-run business creates Christ-centered decorations, party favors, and banners made in the USA to help families, classrooms, and parishes celebrate the faith. Simple to set up, beautiful to display, reusable year after year. Because every celebration is an opportunity to plant seeds of faith. Visit partylikeasaint.com and start planning your sacrament celebration today. That's partylikeasaint.com. Happy Nest Home Goods is on a mission to help you do ordinary things with extraordinary love. They offer a wide variety of Catholic gifts and crafts designed to bring God into all the little moments of your life, including Catholic jewelry, lapel pins, stickers, magnets, and Catholic embroidery kits. The heart of Happy Nest's ministry, though, is their line of sacrifice beads. Sacrifice beads are a beautiful devotion practiced by St. Therese of Lisieux as a little girl. Anytime you have something to offer up, like choosing patience instead of anger, suffering a disappointment, or completing a challenging chore with love, slide a bead towards the crucifix while uniting your sacrifice to Jesus' great sacrifice on the cross. Happy Nest Home Goods crafts all their sacrifice beads lovingly by hand to create a beautiful and durable product. I have them, and truly they are absolutely stunning, beautiful, and such an easy way to bring Jesus into your day, especially as a mom. Choose from a wide variety of both masculine and feminine beads, or even order a set with custom saint medals featuring your own engraving on the back for an heirloom sacrament gift. Flood the world with God's grace by transforming ordinary moments into intentional acts of love. Check out Happy Nest Home Goods at www.happynestHomeGoods.com and use code CatholicWoman, all uppercase CatholicWoman, for 10% off your order. That's happynestHomeGoods.com with code CatholicWoman.
That's so good. So let's dig more into the character. How can women tell? Obviously, you want to watch what someone does, not what they say necessarily. Both are important, but you can sweet talk someone and act like a totally different person. What are some, and I hear this, objection a lot from specifically Protestants, that like you can't truly know someone and if you're ready for marriage unless you live together, because there's lots of things you won't see unless you live together. And I'm just like, I disagree with that. But, what are some practical things people can be looking for on dates when they're spending time wherever, the other person lives, in car rides, wherever, etc., that can help people discern character over just what that person is saying?
To the living in statement, I can't let that one go by. I do hear that also.
Yes.
All secular research has borne out time and time again, living together actually puts you at a deficit. You're more likely for the relationship to end, for there to be a divorce if you marry. It doesn't enhance it at all. So that's all bogus and obviously
Mhm.
immoral. So there are four things to look for. And it's where you just keep a little mental note in the back of your head. It's ability. So does the person talk the talk and walk the walk? So if I'm saying, oh, yeah, I'm the best at this and I do all these things, do I actually do them? Or are those just words I say? Do I say, I'm one of the best Christians on earth, but when I'm out in public, I am so ugly acting towards people? Or I'm great to people in public, but behind closed doors, I'm hateful.
Mhm.
Okay, so then that would be a lack of ability. Integrity, there's two layers to it, really. So, integrity is, does the person give offense? So, if Uncle Bud every year at the reunion gets drunk and the police have to be called, Uncle Bud gives offense. And there is no Uncle Bud. We're making this up. If
Yes.
Aunt Sally one time had, too much to drink and got a little wild and it was bad, she got arrested. That was one time. And then she came back, profusely apologized, was humiliated, and never did it again. She doesn't tend to give offense. So if you're always having to look at this person and be like, what did you just say? What did you just do? And they do it a lot, they give offense. Then the second layer of it, when you go to them and you say, I was so embarrassed earlier. I can't believe the way you spoke to me in front of my neighbors. It was hurtful and humiliating. And they do any of the following. Oh my gosh, you can't take a joke. I was joking. Well, if I'm not laughing, it's not a joke. That's what passive aggressive people say. Or you're so sensitive. You're just like your mother. Like that's an insult to be like your mother. In some cases, it could be, but in general. Uh, or if they get angry back at you, I can't believe you brought this up. You've really hurt my feelings. And you're thinking, what? How did this flip around? All of that means they lack integrity. Then the next one is benevolence. Benevolence isn't, I brought you a Hershey bar, which my husband will do because he's a very smart and loving man. But that's not necessarily, that's thoughtful and that's wise, right? I'm a woman. I like my chocolate. Um, Benevolence is, you need help with what? I have a thing planned. I'm going to stop that thing, put it off. I'm going to help you because you're in a really bad way right now. I'll come across town and pick you up because you had a blowout and you're in a rough neighborhood, whatever. That's benevolence. And the fourth one is consistency of the previous three. It can't be, because sometimes this will happen with women. They'll go, oh, yes, he's brought me flowers. Okay, how long ago has that been? That's been about 18 years. Okay, well, that was just that love bombing at the beginning then. So you
Mhm.
need consistency and listen to their stories. I actually dated a man once, eons ago, way before my husband, and he said after, like, I think the third date, "I'm a really good liar."
Oh my
And
gosh.
my head tilted. I wasn't a therapist, but my head tilted, and I was like, "Wait, what?" And he explained how he had manipulated his mother into something, and I don't mean like as a kid, I was a liar. I
Mhm.
obviously no. He ding, 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 run from this
Wow.
person. People will usually tell you who they are if you listen closely enough.
Wow. Yeah, I'm shocked he flat out said that though. That's pretty impressive.
Right?
Thank goodness.
Right? Woo!
Yes.
Whoa! Yeah. Woo!
Yes. Wow. Um that was so good. So many literally practical things to be looking for, which was so helpful. I want to go back two questions ago. You'd kind of mentioned we're dating to marry, we're not dating for a prom date. Do you have any opinions on like a minimum age to be dating? Now, I know most women listening to this show are college age and above, but there are lots of moms who listen. And I personally, in my family, we had a you don't date till you're 16. And I was so mad until I was 16. And then I didn't even date until I was almost 18 anyway. So in hindsight, I thought that was a really good rule. But do you have opinions on that? Does dating early kind of, cheapen the mindset around marriage? What are your thoughts on that?
It's so funny. You and I even though we're many decades apart, I could be probably your grandmother. But that was the same thing. I was told at 15, well, you're so mature for your age. I was just quiet and scared all the time. So I wasn't mature. I was just docile, right? That was all it was. But I was told, you're so mature, we're going to allow you to date now. And of course, that put the kibosh on, any boy ever asking me. So I was like you, I didn't start dating until I was like end of 16, maybe 17.
Mhm.
I think it's okay as long as there are, for like the parents, very serious parameters put around it. Like, the parents need to meet the boy. The dad needs to have that talk where he's like, you touch her, I'll kill you. And like let
Mhm.
the boy laugh and then be like, no, like I will hunt you down. I'm just like the girl needs the protection. She definitely
Mhm.
needs that. If not an older brother, an uncle, or someone to let that person know. I think it's actually healthy to date at a younger age because you can fall in love and you can date and finish whatever degrees and programs you want to do and get married and have babies. Like that's a beautiful thing versus
Mhm.
I have to get the career in and then time passes and you realize, oh my gosh, everyone's telling me you should freeze your eggs. And then we get into all other sorts of moral issues and problems. So I think
Mhm.
dating younger is good as long as it's set up front. I'm dating to marry. Now, it could be she dates Bob on Friday night. That's a no go. Sam on Saturday night. That's a no go. Okay, but her plan is marriage. And so she's not
Mhm.
going to give herself to some boy who isn't her husband. And I think
Mhm.
they need to be taught chastity because in my diocese, there were a few years where I gave talks on behalf of the diocese, their speakers bureau on chastity. And we always
Mhm.
had to fill out a little questionnaire at the end, like, what'd you learn? Blah, blah, blah. Every single time I was blown away. Boys and girls both would say, I didn't know chastity was an option. Like, I didn't know any of this. I didn't know how to frame it,
Wow.
what it meant. And I thought, and these were Catholics raised in Catholic families. Their parents had put them in these different and they had no, and I don't mean they were all like 12 and they just hadn't been told anything.
Mhm.
No, they had never heard of it and didn't know it was an option.
Wow. Wow, that's
Yeah.
shocking to me.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, okay, so that's good to know. And actually, I did want to touch on chastity, not just physical chastity, but emotional chastity as well. This is, I think, a hot term. I don't know. When I was talking to my siblings, it came up a few times, is like the term emotional chastity, which I understand where it comes from, but I also think it can be overused. So what is healthy emotional chastity and how can it practically be lived out when you're dating?
I think not going too far too fast with your emotions. Because, the reason why we have phrases like, keep your cards close to the vest, because growing up we would play Uno and my mom would always talk and like have her hand out here. We'd be like, Mom, I can see you
I
have
can
like a
see.
draw four wild card, like Mom. And she would just laugh, right? It was funny. But we knew the game plan, like we could see it all, right? So God
Mhm.
bless her with that. It was funny though. Um, so the reason why that phrase matters, where your cards close to your, or keep your cards close to your vest, is because it's wise. So
Mhm.
if you say up front, I have the following insecurities, here they are, and I lay out 5 of them. An unhealthy man, which is probably going to be at best 10% of the men. I think it's much higher than that. I'm saying at
Mhm.
best, that are dating you for nefarious reasons to use you, abuse you, whatever. So you can't share everything up front until you start watching for those 4 aspects of trust that we talked about earlier.
Mhm. Mm.
Then, if you go so deep, and like I know women who will say on the first or second date, the guy's like, "Blah," and they're sharing all their baggage. Okay, they need a therapist. Seriously, like
Mhm.
go get a therapist, go find a spiritual director, talk to your priest. That's either they're really unhealthy in that way and they need help, or they're trying to pull you in. And then when you're your emotions are so clouded, it's hard to say, wait, what was a yellow flag just went red. for whatever NFP, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
conversation is about the future. This is not the right person for me. The way he spoke to me, I found out he cheats on his taxes. When you're so emotionally invested, you get rather blind to the truth in
Mm-hmm.
front of you. So it needs to be in incremental degrees, and it needs to be some back and forth. Because I have people that they'll be married for decades and say, "Man, my husband never speaks about his childhood, his feelings about us, about our children, our future. It's simply, I cut the grass, I paid the water bill." It's just so sad because they don't really know
Mm-hmm.
their spouse. So if they're not sharing with you up front, then something's off, and they're probably going to have an attachment issue, is probably what's going to happen.
Hmm. That's really good to know. And so, okay, so now I have a lot more questions, like you said, about the at best 10% are dating for nefarious reasons. I do want to go down that rabbit hole. But before we do, I have a question more so for the married ladies who are married to men who don't like to talk as much, or maybe so our problem, not problem. I am a gabber, as you can tell, probably from the show, and my husband is more the quiet type. And we do communicate about these big things, but also we're in a season of life where we're so busy, we hardly ever see each other. Like, we only get a few hours together a week. So when you have those two different personality types, especially put under pressure in a busy season, what's I guess like the best thing that we could do, or that couple could do, or what's a practice we should implement to keep healthy communication going despite our different, personality types and how we like to talk? I'm more outgoing, he's more internal, all of that kind of stuff. What's the best thing we could do to, I don't prevent issues in the future?
Great question. So a couple things come to mind. One is, make sure you have daily rituals of connection. If that's, we don't leave the house without praying. Like my husband, if he's going to leave for the day to go anywhere, do anything, he stands over me, places his hands on my head, and he prays a blessing upon me. If he left without doing it, I would feel like, how can I even function today? Like my husband, like, because I love those blessings. It would feel so weird to me. So if it is, when one of us, goes out of the house before the other one, we have a quick kiss and a hug,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or I always make sure I set his lunch out, and he always says, "Thanks, babe." Like, what? So those little rituals matter, because it's sad in some relationships, they don't have any rituals. It's like, well, what do you do when your husband, he's coming home, let's say from work, let's say you work out of the house, or you're a stay-at-home mom. What do you mean, what do I do? Like, do you freshen up? Because that is something I learned from my mother I thought was really wise. When my mother's a little girl, I'm like, "What are you doing? Like, it's 5 o'clock. Why are you, mommy, doing your hair?" I'm like, she would look at me, she'd go, "Your father's coming home."
That's
Oh,
cute.
right? How sweet is that? So she would freshen up, put on some fresh lipstick, run a brush her hair, probably, take off like mustard from her shirt, which we kids probably squirted on her or something, me and my brother, straighten up the house. Not because my father was like, "You better have that house clean." He wasn't controlling in that way at all, but she wanted him to want to come home. So
Mm-hmm.
when my husband's coming home, I do the same thing. And I smile. And the one time I don't smile because I just had something awful happen 10 minutes before, he's so in tune to me in that moment, because he's like, "Wait, this isn't the norm." So have rituals,
Mm-hmm.
connection, and be happy to see each other. And
Mm-hmm.
like, would you want to come home to you? Because if the minute they walk in the door, you're like, "Oh my gosh, Becky threw up and Sammy, oh yay, I'm so glad I'm home." All right, so there's one thing. The other one is to carve out 10 or 15 minutes each. So you'll need 20 minutes total or 30 minutes total, depending on your time, and have a daily conversation where you're just like, "Babe, what was happening? Tell me about your day." The copy guy, he couldn't fix the copier. So you know how it was. We didn't get the Macmillan project printed. We had to go to Kinko's. It was nuts. Whatever it was, they, and I'm probably just dating myself. I don't think Kinko's exist anymore, but anyway, um, it's that they need to get out their stuff. And so if the next day, when your husband's leaving for work, you're like, "Babe, I love you so much. I'm going to pray for you that the Macmillan project goes so well today." that means you're paying attention to his world, even though you may not really understand the ins and outs of his world. So, like, my husband will ask me, he'll say, "How'd your session go?" He doesn't expect me to say, "Well, here's what client A said. She said when she was little, her mother didn't hug her enough." No, he's wanting to know, was it a positive, blessed experience?
Mhm.
That's all he's asking, because he's checking in about what I do. And I always say, like, "Babe, thanks for asking. It was of God. Like, God was in that room. It was amazing. God is so good." And it's a way of connecting, but that way you get your stuff out. You get to talk about, this person was so weird at the grocery store. I didn't know what to do. You get all your little stories out, but then they don't think like, "Oh my gosh, she's still talking. It's been like an hour and a half. She spread it over the whole evening." I have a few minutes to be like, "And I had that meeting, and then the podcast I recorded didn't actually record. Crazy. We have to reschedule it." And then you get to know about each other's worlds. And research shows that's one of the top things you can do in your marriage is have that daily little check-in conversation.
Mm.
And then as the spouse listening, it's a lot of, where you nod your head and, okay, and pay attention. So is that gonna happen again tomorrow? Wow, so tomorrow it's extending over to, okay, 2 days. Oh, honey. And then be on their team. Mr. McWiggins walked in and said, "What?" Well, he's lucky I wasn't there, because I would have gone up to him. You wouldn't actually go up to Mr. McWiggins and say anything, but you're like, you want to be on their team. That's not the time to be like, "I can see why he was annoyed with you."
Mhm.
That is not what your spouse is coming to you for. So to be
Mhm.
positive and supportive and listen,
Mm.
actually
Mhm.
hear them and give them
Yeah,
eye
that's really
contact
helpful.
versus over here scrolling on the phone.
Yeah, yes, yes. Which I talk a lot about is presence and living our life on autopilot. So I think that was really helpful. I know there's a lot of women, like my husband works second shift, so I'm not going to stay up until he gets home every night, but to have that time in the morning instead when he wakes up, or just you can be flexible. It doesn't have to be exactly, the traditional when he gets home, we have this conversation, whatever works for your family. Maybe you're a military family or whatever, you figure out what works, but those rhythms and routines are really helpful, so thank you for that. Okay, so I would like to
Sure.
go down this rabbit hole of the men who are out there dating for nefarious reasons. And I do wanna preface it by saying I don't think most of these men, well, I won't say most. I don't think all of these men are intentionally being nefarious. I think that our culture has gotten so far away from God, it has gotten so far into instant gratification and so much just about me, that I don't think all these men are intentionally being nefarious. Because I can personally think of a few men I know who are single, and I mean, I would personally, as a Catholic, probably categorize them in that category, who, are using relationships for self gratification. But I don't think they're doing it on purpose. They're overall good people. How have we gotten here? How come so many men in their 20s and 30s are still living in mom's basement and playing video games all day and quote dating or just talking to someone for 2 years and then it never goes somewhere?
Well, if you were, okay, let's say it wasn't dating. If it was, you own a Catholic owned business, let's say a storefront, there's a certain amount of people that are going to try to rip you off. That's just because at least 1 to 4%, again, I think it's at least 10%, if not higher now, people have a pathology. They have narcissism and they're antisocial. And that doesn't mean like I don't like to talk to people. Antisocial means they go against society's norms, is what that
Okay.
means. So I think we have to be on the lookout for that. But just the people that you were describing, like these men, like they're Catholic, they don't think they're doing anything wrong, but they're living in their parents' basement. Part of it is it's not charitable of parents to emotionally handicap your children so they don't grow up. They don't need to still live in your basement. Oh, but he struggles with anxiety. Well, people used to struggle with anxiety 200 years ago and they still worked on the farm and they still
Mhm.
did their job, right? So I think this coddling behavior is really, really unhealthy. And if it's going to lead your child to not really step into his full masculinity, how God made him, that's very unkind, very unkind. So they need to get out of the house. And when do people move and do things? When they have to. So if it's like, hey, whatever is at your pace, no. Like, you haven't, I love you. This is how much I love you. Your father and I have agreed. You have until this date. And at that point, like they need to do that and to stop letting your children play video games all the time. Like, it needs to be
Mhm.
so limited. Like, as children, I grew up in a time period where dessert was served with every dinner, at least, even
Mhm.
if it was a store-bought cookie, it was still something. And it
Mhm.
would be, you can have dessert when you finish your meal. So why are we letting them have this much time with video games versus you go play outside and do these things and then you get this? So that part of it is that's how we got there, I think.
Mhm.
And it is sad how many men, yeah, they're just I call them man, like it's a man child,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
If you do meet someone and you think, gosh, he has all these other wonderful qualities, I would want him to step up and do some things on his own, like, you need to move on your own. Like, if you wanna marry me, the following things have to happen. If not, you're not ready to be married and to be a husband and a father. And they need to be able
Mhm.
to, I'm getting an extra job, I'm driving Uber Eats on the weekends to save money, I'm finishing the 12 hours to get my degree so I can become whatever, and, like, make serious strides. If not, they're not good marriage material just because 'cause they're nice or funny or witty. I met a woman one time who loved how intellectual this man was that she was dating. Gosh, the things that came out of his mouth, it was so obvious that he was probably a sociopath,
Oh,
psychopath,
wow.
just so unhealthy, and not just like, "I've seen some porn, but I got away from it, and I did the St. Joseph consecration, now I'm go" No, no, into
Mhm.
levels of stuff that I didn't even know existed, but
Mm.
yet wanted to still date him because of how intellectually he was. Girl, go
Mm.
enroll in a school and get a PhD in something if you want intellectual conversations about something. Like, that is not
Mhm.
why we marry someone, so
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and that kind of goes back to though the it's about me, like I'm getting this out of it. So how do we find the balance between obviously you do want to get something out of a marriage. It's supposed to be joyful overall, but it is, hard and the ultimate goal of marriage is to help get each other to heaven. I personally believe that. But and I'm not responsible for my husband's soul, but I am a huge part and a big player in his life, and I'm responsible for the way that I impact him. My choice my con oh my gosh, I'm sorry, being sick is is affecting my brain today. My actions have consequences, and obviously my actions towards my spouse have consequences and vice versa. So, how do you find the balance between, this is a gratifying relationship, I'm finding a lot of joy in it, v but it's a healthy relationship versus, this I'm finding a lot of gratification from this, maybe I really like the intellectual conversations, but this is not a relationship that should be worth getting married.
because we have to go to God and pray and ask for the gift of discernment to know, is this of God or is this not of God? I met a woman years ago who married a man because no matter what he said, she said, yes. I don't mean inappropriate things, but like, let's go here. Everything was a yes. Even if
Mhm.
she thought, like, I don't like hay rides, I'm allergic to hay, whatever. And that's a crazy example, but she would still say yes. And what she thought, and this was an insecurity from her childhood, is that, look, I make him happy.
Mm.
But when the little girl inside grows up who now has an opinion and says, yes, 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 but no to this. Or instead of that, how about this? Oh, no, we can't do that. It has to always be yes. Then it becomes this, it's a parent child dynamic, even though you're married.
Mhm.
And that's so incredibly unhealthy. And so they need to check off the boxes of, what does God say about marriage? How will that man help you get to heaven? Because a lot of times people will intellectualize, and sure, there are geniuses out there that they're just so deep about everything. And that's not what I'm talking about. But
Mhm.
sometimes people intellectualize as a way to stay out of emotions because they
Mhm.
don't want to go deeper and they don't want to necessarily say the truth they're hiding from it, not for nefarious reasons, but for an insecure attachment. That's
Mm.
really what's going on.
Okay, that's really good to know. So, as parents, a lot of the women who listen to the show are parents and have young girls and boys. But let's talk about the girls specifically. What can we do to form them from a young age to, obey your parents? There's a certain age where they do just need to have, I say blind obedience, not in a bad way, but like a car's coming. When I say stop, you need to stop without questioning me or any of that. And then there's a certain, they go through these different ages of development, specifically intellectually. But how do we form them to have their own opinion while still, you know, I guess I'm not even sure how to phrase this question, because it's important to question everything, but also still understand that there is authority and wisdom in sources outside of us, like the church. The Catholic Church has so much more wisdom than I ever could. And it's okay to personally question things, but to understand that I will never be as wise as Jesus and the church and the foundation he laid. Where is that line to kind of help these women, especially as we raise our young girls, to become confident in who they are, to have these opinions, but also to, find that balance between me, this is what I think, it's all about me, and the total other opposite, like you said, where it's like, I just say yes to everything and I'm so passive and just let life happen to me.
I think it's a very fine walk, which is why we need Jesus and our guardian angel and, all the communion of saints, is that we need a balance between them being people pleasing, which is very unhealthy because they say yes to everything and they feel guilty, but they're really resentful. We don't want to raise a resentful child because they may say yes on the outside, but inside they're just seething with anger. And we also need them to be obedient. When I say stop, you stop, right? And that's been a
Mhm.
problem with when people take gentle parenting like to the really nth degree, is everything's like about, oh, wow, you have really big feelings right now. And that's a really big feeling. And so let's talk about it. And you want the car? Well, okay, you can go have the little toy car that your cousin has because you have such strong like, no, because then that goes into elementary school. And I taught high
Yeah.
school for 16 years. That's not a winning combination because then everything is, what do you mean I have to come inside from recess? But I don't want to. So we don't want entitled children. You want to help your children think through those things. So that's part of why I like love and logic. The kid will come in with a problem and the parent will give some empathy like, wow, that sounds like a really, upsetting situation that happened on the playground, whatever. Um, and, blah, blah, blah happened to you. What are you going to do about it? Because most parents go, well, you know what you need to do. And then the kid grows up and gets out in the world and they can't make their own decisions. And they're calling their parents when it's like, what do you mean you don't know what to do in that situation? You say no to him, you walk away. Right? What are
Mhm.
we doing here? So you want their brain to start thinking about like, oh, well, I could go up and I could slap little Susie Q. Okay, that is an option. Like, like not a great
It
option, but
is.
okay. What else could you do? I could tell the teacher. Okay, what else could you do? I could speak with her privately. Okay, and get them to think through things. And you want your children to fail when they're little. Let them fail. Because where do you learn from? Failure a lot of the times. So you want them to have problems that they figure out and then you support them in doing it, but don't rescue. Helicopter parenting is crippling.
Hmm.
And so I would talk through, and then if it's okay, well, there are some ways that other people, not me, how other people might handle it. If you want to know, let me know. Do you want to know? No. Okay, honey. I love you. See you later. But if you change your mind, I'm here, and the kid may come back later.
Hmm.
Well, some people would, write a letter, whatever it is. Or you can give them other options. And that's how they learn to stand on their
Hmm.
own 2 feet. So you don't want to handicap them. And you also don't want, well, sweetie, I overheard your conversation with Becky Lou over there. And you said yes to everything, but I know you hate making mud pies. What made you go and make mud pies with her? Well, mommy, she was so sweet and played with Barbies, and that's not her favorite. Like, look at you being sacrificial. That's so loving and sweet. Or do you always give in because Becky Lou is she's a bully? Is that why
Mhm.
so you have to walk your children through scenarios. And I think a great way to do it is through reading books and like, oh, what do you think Junior's going to do in the next chapter? What could he do? He needs to tell, Bobby to stop it. Okay, well, let's see that's a great
Mhm.
way. Reading with them, that's a beautiful thing to do.
Okay, we could talk, like I said, last time we talked for 75 minutes. We could talk forever, but there's one more really big question I want to hit, and that is on pornography. I think the stats out there are most men have at some point in their life viewed it, and I think the average age they begin viewing it is like 8. I could be wrong on that, but I
Yeah.
believe that's what I've heard.
Mhm.
So I know a lot of, and women struggle with this too. I don't want to, gloss over that, but I do want to focus on the men because we're talking about women dating. So when a woman has found out that a man has viewed pornography, or maybe she hasn't found out, how do they address this issue in dating? Because it is a really big issue today.
Yes, it comes up so often. What I suggest to the women on my Miss to Mrs. group is it's not something you're going to ask on the first or second date. We just need to see, do we like each other? Do we seem compatible at this point? But as you get further along in this, before you get too emotionally connected, as we spoke of earlier, is I would just point blank ask about it and just say really what you said. Research shows that, blah, blah amount of men, look, I think it's like 75% have been involved in porn, and it were exposed to it. Were you exposed to it as a child? Well, yeah, I was at my cousin's house. Okay, whatever. Okay, so learn the story, and how has it impacted your life? That way, you're not doing some critical, finger wagging. And then, is that something that you fall into now? I do. I try really hard, but I probably have to confess it, every month when I go to confession or whatever. Okay. What are do you have a plan on what to do to stop that? And I would want some sort of plan and then depending on how heavy the usage has been, and again, like that person I mentioned earlier that was into all sorts of stuff, um, sometimes bells can't be unrung, right? So if a person has gotten into some really weird fetishy stuff, I don't think they're a good candidate for marriage.
Hmm.
Because so often I cannot tell you how many women that I read about online or that I've met in my own life that say, and they're like very attractive. My husband has no interest. I'm the one begging him and he's turning me down. But I know at 2 a.m. he's up and I know what's happening down there in the guest room. And it's heartbreaking, and women find it humiliating. So they really need to get involved in some kind of program like Chris Stefanik has a really powerful program. And the other thing I recommend is doing the consecration to St. Joseph, because that's been known to break that stronghold, because Satan and his demons are right in there wanting to destroy families. It's not just happenstance what it does to family. It's absolutely demonic.
It is. That's great advice. And I like the way you said to kind of ask those questions without being shameful or shaming them or finger pointing, because that's it is important to ask, but it's also a very sensitive topic. So that was a beautiful way to ask it. Dana, where can everybody find you if they want to connect and learn more?
Well, if you go to dananygaard.com, which I'm sure you'll put it in the comments there because it's a long name. If you go there, you can learn about me. It will take you to my counseling website if you're in the state of Texas, or you can learn about me as a public speaker or my program, Miss to Mrs., where I help single women overcome insecure attachment so they can have a happy, holy marriage someday.
Beautiful. Dana, thank you so, so much for being here today. Thank you also to Choose Life, Party Like a Saint, and Happy Nest Home Goods for sponsoring this episode. If this episode was helpful, please share it with any woman in your life. Join our Facebook group, subscribe on YouTube, podcast wherever you get your show, and I will see you all in 2 weeks.